You're listening to Youth Perspective on Adventist Radio London. I'm your host, Adele, and today we are joined in the studio by the founders of Adventists in the City, who are opening the door on a new age of Adventists in corporate spaces in the UK. So before we get into the story, we're going to do a really quick prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just want to invite your presence into this interview, Lord. We just ask that it's an interview that can inspire many others in the corporate space and kind of inform them of the resources that you have used your servants to create that is there to help them. So that we're excited for what is to come, Lord. And yeah, we thank you for this opportunity to chat. Amen.
Amen.
I mean, you guys really are like a completely unique and new perspective for my generation. I know people listening here from the older generation might be aware of different things that have come before, but you've appeared on the scene recently, maybe not for you guys, but recently to my knowledge, and you're hosting events that are really giving people access to learn truly valuable corporate skills and networking in ways that were not previously available. So I love to start my interviews with a little Bible study, and the verse that I've picked for you guys is Colossians 3:23-24.
Love that. Very topical.
Whatever you do with all your heart, which is the main bit, and then as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as your reward. And the reason why I chose that verse was because I believe it really captures what you guys are doing in terms of enabling people through Adventist in the City. Like working for the Lord with your whole heart obviously means to kind of really grow in your skills and expand your skills, and you're giving people the tools and skills to really do that. So I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but I was going to ask you guys kind of what that verse means to you as well.
I think for myself, one thing I heard from one of the speakers at our dinner that we had recently was, when it comes to like money or comes to worldly things, God can give that to us in any shape or form or whatever, but there's a reason why he's put us in like a career or a job or whatever space that we're in. So, you know, when it comes to work, people think, oh, I'm working to get money or whatever, but you might be working to bless someone in your workplace or to bless yourself. And because of those things, you should still approach even work, not just preaching or things that you think are just to do with Christ. Even in the workplace, you should really do that, you know, to honor God and do that to the best of your ability, and center that around God as well.
Yeah. Just to bounce off that, I was honestly going to say the same thing, not to be a copycat, but I think it's one thing that a lot of people struggle with is trying to figure out what their purpose is and their calling. And me personally, I don't think that my purpose or calling is directly related to my particular vocation, but my mindset towards every situation and circumstance that God puts me in is just that is a unique context which God thinks that I'm best placed for, to let his glory be shown in that particular area. So right now, like, I don't know if I'm destined to be a lawyer forever, but while I'm in my law firm in that particular place doing this career, how can I best display the glory of God? And I think that the effectiveness of us being able to do that and to convey that light is definitely increased when we do our work excellently, because you have credibility and because you kind of show the values and the work ethic that God has placed in your heart to do what you do. So for me, that's what it really is. I think doing everything that God has positioned you for to the best of your ability and letting him do the rest, and not letting anything that you do be a hindrance to other people accessing the gospel through you.
I've taken all the good points there. But, as said, I think, it's just all about kind of doing all you can to the best of your ability. And I mean, people often say that, oh yeah, like, I don't know, my colleagues might say to me, oh, you're such a fast learner or this or that, and like there's something special about me. And I'm thinking, it's not anything special about me at all. It's just, I don't know, God's kind of empowered me, and God's kind of made me in this way, and all I'm just doing is just kind of trying to fulfill that to the best of my ability, really. So I'm not trying to take any of the credit myself, and just kind of be humble and just kind of reflect kind of God's power in your life, really.
Okay. That's deep. I love that though. I love those kind of the way all of your answers interlinked, even though there were some apprehensions about all the good points we've taken, there was still so that's amazing. The second thing I love doing in these interviews, because personally, I find it fun, is to surprise people and let them know that we're going to play a little game. So, the game that I have picked for you guys is Corporate Hot Takes.
Hey.
Any of the game is basically there's a bunch of statements, and you can either decide if this is true, is false. So the vibe is if you guys kind of give your answers at the same time. Yeah, let's get into it. So the first statement is networking is more important than an actual skill when it comes to career success. True, false, or pass? I'm gonna count you guys down from 3. I'll give you like 10 seconds to think about it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, right. So I'm guessing you're gonna go after one. But yeah, so 3, 2, 1, and
True.
False.
True.
Yeah.
I can see both. But
Yeah,
true. Personally, go on, sorry, go on.
I said the reason it's true is because I think networking itself, that is a skill as well. That actually is a tangible skill that you actually you can learn and you can get better at networking as well. But I feel like the connections. I mean, one thing that I've actually seen just in my short career is that the people that you know can actually be almost more important sometimes than necessarily how good someone is. A lot of fortunately or unfortunately, there's a lot of kind of people. Knowing the right people can be very helpful in your career, I'd say. And so I think networking or being able to network well can really open up a lot of doors and opportunities. It's my take.
okay.
Let's go to the opposite. What do you forgot for it? Because I know yours is the opposite. So
Yeah, let me be a contrarian and say false. I know people say like, oh, your network is your net worth and whatever. And I feel like people love to just throw out lines like, if you want to be a billionaire, like if you surround yourself with 4 billionaires, you'll be the 5th billionaire. Absolutely false. I think that like part of what makes your ability to network effective is having something to bring to the table in the conversation. Like if you are a people person, but you actually don't really have much of value to add to somebody's situation, a lot of like people who are very busy and have a lot going on, it's just going to be kind of like, nice guy, but what else? And I think I'm also biased from my perspective because the career that I do is like very technical and stuff. Like you can't just rock up being a cool, friendly person. So I think the question depends on what career maybe. And also the statement said more important than, and I think that's not universally true. So I had to say false.
Yes.
I kind of sit in between both, so I don't want to say anything. It's not going to say anything different, but I think it's true. But I hear Winnie's point, so I'll leave it there.
Fair enough. Okay. Can I just clarify off the record? It's Winnie-Po.
Yes.
I don't want to be here pronouncing your name wrong, so I had to.
Thank you.
Off the record is so funny. Put that in. Put that in the record.
That part.
Didn't search you, but yeah. So moving on to the next statement: work-life balance is a myth if you want to be successful. Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1.
False.
Okay, that was very unanimous. Why the false?
For me, success is holistic. It's not just purely on corporate level or monetary level. And I think there has to be an element of give and take with your work-life balance. You might need to do more work than life to get there. But in general, if you look back and average it out, your work-life balance should be there to enable you to develop your life, which success is both. The whole point of work-life balance is not just work balance, it's both. So when you take those into consideration, they've both got to be flourishing, they've both got to be developed, and they have to be balanced for that true success to be there. I know that was not the best way of articulating. I know Winnie can probably do it better, but that's kind of like my viewpoint.
I really do agree with that. Like success is holistic. And I think that there are many things that comprise a successful life that aren't related to your work. Another thing I would say is that I think thinking about it as work-life balance probably skews what it actually is and would make a lot of people kind of like answer the question differently. I don't necessarily think that work-life balance means that you finish work at a set time every day and you have time in the evenings and on the weekends to do everything. I think it means it's more like a equilibrium, or like a, I don't know what's a better synonym for it. I'm a bit tired. My brain isn't on 100%. But I think it's about like having a healthy amount of push and pull that you're comfortable with. So that might mean sometimes working later, but other times getting to go on a 4-week holiday. Or, you know, that might mean that like for a period of time, your only time off is Sabbath, but then you get to have like a long sabbatical, for example. So I think whatever works for you and how you define success is the most important thing.
All I'd add to that as well is I'd say it's relative. Work-life balance as well. I think that's relative as well. But I also think, in particular, I guess as Christians as well, because we can sometimes get quite caught up in our careers and kind of, it's almost like you think that's the most important thing in life. But then there's obviously more to life, and our faith and our religion is obviously more important than that as well. So
Of course.
it's also a kind of a, I definitely think that it's A, relative, and B, I think it's also quite important as well that you do also have that kind of outside of work values of life, really.
For sure. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul?
Amen. Facts. That's the one quote you need there.
Verse.
It reminded me of the verse we literally spoke about at the beginning, about the fact that our inheritance is from God, and if you're working your priorities are a bit skewish, because it's not what we're called to do alone on this earth. Moving on then. Casual dress makes people less productive. It's one I've heard. I mean, marketing is always a bit, we're not as corporate as, say, the lawyers and the other areas as well, finance. We tend to have a different vibe. So right then, 3, 2, 1.
Honestly,
True.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a reason why. Okay, this is a weird take, but there's a reason why people wear uniform to school or to like those things. I think a lot of your appearance affects your mentality as well. And casual doesn't mean like, you know, you're unshowered, but there's an aspect of like being smart and being put together, which kind of can play a part on your productivity. And again, it depends on the environment. You know, you're not going to dress up in a 3-piece suit to sit at home. Working from home is a bit different. But I think sometimes if you're in that environment, it's also good if your appearance also matches that as well. And I think there's a small factor of your productivity, I think, that can be affected by your appearance on that said day, for example. But doesn't apply to everyone, by the way. But yeah.
The only reason I said true is because, as for me personally, the only time I dress casual for work is when I'm working from home. And when I work from home, it's just not the same, really. But it's not really connected to my dress. But the only reason I would probably in reality say false is because a lot of the tech bros and the software developers and the startup people dress extremely casually, and the work they do by nature has to be productive. And they have a high output. They do their work excellently. They're very creative. So I think it just depends on the work environment. But for me personally, I like dressing relatively smart to work because I don't like thinking about what I wear to work, because it wastes time and mental energy, which I don't have. So I can see both sides.
Yeah. And I said, I think it's definitely industry specific as well. I said, because there's certain, I mean, I'm in a client facing industry, so it's paramount that you're dressed apart. And when I do dress apart as well, I do feel like, I know what I'm talking about. All of a sudden your tie's on, you feel like sometimes, you just put the glasses on so you can just feel like, oh yeah, I'm actually fitting in. But so for me anyway, when I'm especially, I said I don't work from home that often, but when I do and I'm more casual in a young tracksuit or whatever, I just feel like this doesn't feel the same. But I said I think it's definitely sector specific, and I said certain industries I'm sure you can be probably even more productive as well in a comfortable environment and feeling comfortable as well. But, yeah.
I agree.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Kind of a diverse range of opinions. I guess the last one that we will do then is LinkedIn is just corporate Instagram. I see them. They were smiling. They were smiling at me. Passes in their heads. Yeah, I'm by the smiles. I'm taking it. You don't need 10 seconds to think on that one. So I'm a 3, 2, 1, and you can let me know. Yeah. So 3, 2, 1.
False.
No.
False.
I'd say false.
Ooh.
Okay, the reason.
Okay. I'd still say false, but I'll explain my answer. Ollie, go on. You go first.
Yeah, I think it's slightly becoming more and more. I don't know. Like, I think LinkedIn was very, very corporate, and it was only kind of business stuff that people were posting on there, or stuff like their work. But I started to see a lot more people post about their personal life on LinkedIn, which I'm not saying is a bad thing at all. I'm saying it's probably worth doing. Obviously, yeah. So, okay, obviously it's not. I know it's nothing like Instagram, but the only reason I said true is because I feel like it's slightly going to that direction of people share more and more of their personal life and kind of outside of their work and their wider, I guess, personality and who they are as a person. Which I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but I just think that that's kind of the way it's going.
I saw somebody post their wedding pics on LinkedIn, and I said, "Wow, this is new."
And only for me is because I got my previous 2 roles off LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
If you're kind of comparing it, I guess on Instagram you can get booked for like music stuff. So I guess technically that's is the similarity there. But I think because there's still an element of, you can actually get jobs off there. There's still the functionality there. But then yes, I do agree. I'm seeing people walk their dog on LinkedIn and then somehow link it to their KPIs and SLAs. So yeah, it's definitely becoming a lot more Instagrammy and showy, and how can they make a plate of cereal linked to their next promotion? For sure. But I wouldn't yet compare it to Insta as like a corporate Instagram. But yeah, it's definitely moving in a direction for sure.
We give it 10 years. It's so funny hearing that, because these are the things that, like, in my day-to-day job, that I'm like, yeah, show people your personal life. This is good marketing. This is shit. So it's funny hearing the perspective of receiving that on your feed in the morning when you open up LinkedIn. But yeah, so one thing I realized that I forgot to do, because I've obviously met you guys before, and when I'm familiar with people, sometimes it didn't pop in my head, is I didn't actually get you to introduce yourselves. So you just been voices on the radio. So guys, to give a little introduction, what your roles are in Adventists in the City, and obviously also what kind of area you work in your corporate day to day as well. I don't know if one of you want to start.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Wanipa. I'm a tax lawyer at Clifford Chance. I'm one of the founders of Adventists in the City. Don't mean to take all the credit, but it was kind of my brainchild. CJ is looking at me funny, but he knows the truth. Anyhow, yeah, that's me. I attend London Live Church in Notting Hill. If you guys haven't been there before, absolutely come down. It is a very beautiful, nurturing and welcoming space.
Hi guys, CJ here. So for work, I'm a digital auditor at BP. Simply, I'm in cybersecurity, and like consulting is my main role. Also, one of the co-founders of AITC. I'm not going to argue with Anifa in terms of who actually found it. I would say it's a joint effort. But yeah, so I do music as well, so I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to churches. But yeah, love it to speak to you guys.
Lovely.
Cool. And I'm Oliver. I am a corporate banker at Handelsbanken. My local church is Oxford Central. However, I am shortly, hopefully, God willing, moving to London. But yeah, I kind of agree with Wanipa that it might have been her initial idea. The way I was initially introduced was Wanipa's kind of got this idea. What do you think? How would you be able to come and support? But CJ's looking quite shocked and betrayed. there.
Do you know
But
what the thing with upstanding men of God, men who stand on principles of truth?
This is my friend from birth. I'm betrayed.
I'm just saying. What I'm presenting is
I've been
Listen,
run
the
amok.
facts I have. The facts I have. That's all I can say. However, I said
Crazy
it's a privilege
stuff.
to be brought into AITC, and I think it's some really good kind of It's a very important and very kind of fundamental thing that the work that we're planning to do, and I think there's a lot of growth that will come from this platform, and hopefully we can inspire others as well.
Amazing. So I guess the $1,000,000 question, without getting into the politics of who birthed the idea, is what is AITC, and how did it come about? How did it come to be where it is today?
So yeah, Adventists in the City, or AITC, is basically a professional network for young Adventists working in corporate careers. And our mission is centering Christ in corporate careers. And what we mean by that is basically that we want to bridge that gap between people's professional and spiritual lives. I think it can be very easy to compartmentalize God, and especially because we are Seventh-day Adventists, and I think because Sabbath as a day is so focal for us, it can be very easy to think about God in silos. I think about God between Friday sunset and Saturday sunset, or I think about God when I'm doing my preparation for Sabbath school, or when I'm praying, or when I'm about to eat, that type of thing. But our whole thing is to really try to show people that in everything you do, whether you eat or drink or go to work, do it for the glory of God. Even if that work is just looking at Excel sheets, even if that work is just marking up documents, how can you see God in that, and how can you project God in that as well? I think another really key thing for us is that something CJ mentions often is that the SCA Church is very connected in the UK and globally in terms of like music, youth days. I think out of the Christian denominations, we're one of the most connected churches. You are at SDA in London. You probably know somebody in a church in Manchester, in a church in Leeds, in Scotland. But when it comes to our careers, we don't really realize. And it's so funny from AITC, we've had a networking event and a tech dinner so far. And people have met each other there and realized that they work at the same place or in the same industry, and just wouldn't know because we don't really have that communication about our professional lives, and we just want to bridge that gap basically.
Lovely.
Yeah, I think everything when you said was perfectly articulated. I think it's just also about inspiring, really, and creating pathways for that younger generation as well, to kind of, again, using the example of music and social, like one of the reasons why I play keys is because I used to see these musicians at these youth days play, and how skillful they were, and creating that Adventist gospel sound, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of. And I think being able to kind of create that same viewpoint for the young people. Oh wow, there are people in the Adventist church that are successful, or they're lawyers. But I wouldn't know how to pass the bar. I'm not comfortable to reach out to a stranger on Instagram, but my friend's older sister actually, you know what I mean? It's just being able to actively create those pathways for the younger generation, and even people that are already in professional sector. They want to change a role, and there's an Adventist that works in the company they want to get into, or they want to pivot, and those kind of things. So it's connections, but not just oh, I work at this job, but also how can I actually get there as well. So yeah.
And just I guess add to on the back of that as well. And I guess the ultimate goal really is just kind of to see or support we want a thriving kind of SDA professional community. And I said, by having a platform or an area where I said people can come together, they can network, people can come together, they can kind of receive mentorship, people can come together and kind of really socialize as well, but also hopefully in a way that can also be beneficial to their corporate careers as well. So it's just, I said, creating a platform which allows people to kind of have those opportunities to interact and kind of grow themselves personally in their career and spiritually as well.
Okay. And kind of following on from that, how did you guys become a team? What was it that you saw within each other that really motivated you guys to want to work together?
But for me, I saw that Winnie was a doer, someone that gets things done and completes things. I mean, obviously getting to know her, knowing that she was, big person in Cambridge doing up ACS leader and everything, and bringing in people to interview and inspiring people from even before university. And I sometimes have ideas, but I'm also a bit of a doer as well. So I know that when I was able to join in with someone that was able to complete stuff, what can really go wrong? And obviously we've also got quite a bubbly personality between the two of us as well, and we can good at public speaking. So for me, I just thought she was the perfect person to bring. She's going to say it's her idea, but our idea to life. But yeah, no, I just thought she was she just is someone that just does stuff, but does it amazingly well. Even the job that she's in as well. So that's for me. And then even for Ollie, I know they'll probably talk about their own reasons, but for Ollie as well, like I've known Ollie from birth as well, but the drive that he has, finding his internship, then getting the role that he's got as well, and he's very, very focused and knowledgeable. So those are the kind of people that I wanted to work with, and I think that's how the team started off. We've also got Aidan as well, who's very passionate about young careers. He's not on the call today, but he's very passionate about growing young careers as well. Excellent public speaker. So yeah, we just kind of, and we also want to grow the team further as well. But I think that's kind of like how the team formed, from just seeing our strengths and knowing that what can go wrong when you put everyone together, and bring this idea to life. So yeah, anything to add, guys?
Yeah, I think that, thank you very much, by the way. That was very sweet of you, TJ. That's probably the nicest thing you said to me in 2025. Another thing I would add is just that, like, I think it was the willingness. So I didn't know Ollie before we did this, but I'll speak primarily about CJ. But I think when we first kind of started floating this idea, it was just seeing how willing he was, despite being probably the world's busiest man, to kind of make room and make intentional time to essentially serve, which is what this is. It's service. Like, we don't get paid for this. It's not like we ourselves get any personal gain, but we really just want to benefit our community and bring glory to God. And I identify that in him. He's somebody who is always willing to go above and beyond in service of other people. To me, as a friend, I see that in his other friendships, and even in like the ministry that he's involved with his music. And I think it's really important to work with people that are not just driven, but also like willing, because there's times where, for example, like we'll be on the chat talking about AITC admin and things we need to do like early hours of the morning, and we both just have that kind of like we want to do it, you know what I mean? Which is really important to have. So yeah, I would say for Ollie as well, like, oh, another thing I would say about both of them, sorry, is that they're both also quite well connected in the SDA church, which I thought was really important, because my story and my testimony of how I became a Christian is quite unique, but I'll basically say that like I grew up without my family in the church, and so I wasn't necessarily very connected to other Adventists, and I moved to London only a couple of years ago, and from a practical standpoint, it was nice having people that knew people in the SEC and were able to very quickly be like, okay, this person works here, I know this person who could be willing to help out, and like it made those connections more natural and seamless. I would say for Ollie, like Ollie is so knowledgeable about his subject area, like in terms of banking and finance, and also just somebody that's just very, like, I would say again, like equally dedicated. Like, we didn't know each other before, but he just like jumped in and like has been like very committed to everything, like really helpful along the way, like presenting ideas, innovative. So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess just to add to the top of that as well, I think everyone we each have kind of our strengths as well. I said Winipa's definitely the doer, and sometimes we need her to kind of put us in line and make sure we said you're going to do this. Okay, have we done that yet? Okay, yes, okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for doing that. And I said CJ's got his network of knowing pretty much everyone, so that's obviously quite useful as well to have. So I think the synergy as a team, and I said with the addition of Aidan as well, who's also got his strengths, and he's also got his passion. He's also quite passionate, especially about personal finance as well, and that's something which we're gonna have an event on slightly later in the year. But I said I think yeah, we've got really kind of good synergy kind of going together. But as kind of really touched on, there's a lot of kind of work behind the scenes as well, and there's a lot of kind of I said, this is all voluntary and all done in kind of the free time that we have. And that's why, again, looking to potentially expand the team as well. But it's, yeah, for me, it's really a privilege to kind of be involved in this. And I said, so met yourself, Wanipa, through it as well. It's been a really good experience.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear, and it's kind of beautiful in the way that you guys really work well together, and you've obviously built a friendship beyond just kind of working together to obviously run the space. So that's a unique thing. But yeah, no, I guess kind of following on from that, because you guys have mentioned the Adventist community a lot. The next question would be like, what is one of the biggest misconceptions that you've heard in the Adventist community when it comes to the corporate space that you want to debunk?
Ooh.
I've got kind of a quick one on here, and it's something that actually I go back to when I was at university, and I was I went to Leicester. I went to university in Leicester, and I went to Leicester Central Church. And I remember I was speaking to one of the kind of elders at the time, and I was saying, "Oh, like I found an internship, and I'm going to be in banking." And it was quite interesting what they said to me. They were like, "Does God want you to be a banker or something?" Or something. It's something like that they said, and I was kind of like, I reflect back on it, and I was thinking, what were they actually kind of implying by that? What were they kind of? Did they have a kind of misconception in their head of what a banker was, and does that fit as a Christian? And so I think one of the misconceptions is that I think Christ can use, and God can use us in any capacity, really. And I think that the new younger generation who are coming through, and kind of there's so many opportunities, there's so many different kind of industries that we can go into. I know that different generations might have just been doctors or in kind of the medical sector or something like that, but there is a need for a high achieving kind of, I guess, black young professionals in the corporate space, really.
Yeah. It's we do really well in healthcare and those kind of careers, and I think it's never a part that we're not doing well in other corporate careers. There just isn't a knowledge of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not a misconception, but just, I think it needs to be brought into the light more that there are people that are owning $1 million businesses, or that are big time lawyers that are in the Adventist church. That's not really shone a light on as much as, people that are successful doctors or nurses that, obviously should be celebrated. But yeah, I think that was the whole point of AITC as well, to really bring those other corporate specific careers into the light. So yeah.
Yeah, the diversity of the careers. I guess I'm kind of about that diversity and all those things there. What would be like the biggest challenge that you faced in the corporate space that relates to your faith?
I wouldn't say it's been a challenge in actuality, but I think it was one that I thought would be a challenge, which was being able to observe Sabbath effectively. Because in my career in particular, long hours are notorious, and it's notorious for people kind of working around the clock and that sort of thing. And I think I was very anxious before I started as a trainee that there would be a perception that I was kind of less dedicated to my career than other people, or less hardworking, or that Sabbath was kind of an inconvenience rather than a blessing. And so I knew it was a conversation that I had to have very early on. And honestly, it has never been an issue. Like throughout the 2 and a bit years that I've been working at my firm, I've never felt pressured to work during Sabbath hours, and it's been really respected. So I think aside from that, I would just say probably the physical time constraints in other areas, in other times of the week, just because I'm quite involved with my church, and I serve in some different ministries, and it can be really difficult to carve out meaningful time to work on those things, which, as we discussed at the beginning, are just as important to me in terms of a valuable and successful life. I do a little bit of preaching here and there. I'm currently fighting for my life to write a sermon. I'm struggling to find time, but we just got to pray and hope it all comes together.
I guess then kind of the follow-up would be, do you have any advice on that and managing when it comes to managing your time and stuff like that?
Oh, I think I'm probably not the best person because my work hours can be like very unpredictable. But one thing I've started trying to do now is making sure that my mornings are fairly regimented because that's the time I can control more than my evenings. So I've started waking up a lot earlier so that I can really fit in meaningful time to read the Bible, to pray. Because I used to just like read the Bible quite hurriedly on my commute, and it meant that I just didn't absorb as much, or that like I was kind of half thinking about the first things that I would need to do when I got into the office, but kind of sacrificing a little bit of my time in the morning to dedicate to that, making sure that I can exercise and feel alive and awake at the start of the day, so that like when the evening comes, if I'm half falling asleep, like I don't need to be like, oh, reading the Bible is a chore or something like that. And I think also, for me, this might not work for everybody, depending on the nature of your job, but finding pockets of time between tasks as well to do stuff. That might just be like going for a quick little walk, or like, for example, like catching up with AITC stuff, or just writing down a bit of inspiration, or whatever it is that kind of resets and refreshes your mind. Like, if you don't carve out that time, your job is certainly not going to give it to you freely. So you've got to do what you've got to do.
That's fair. That was good advice anyway. Good advice. But yeah, you mentioned the Sabbath, and I that was something else I kind of wanted to ask about, because I know you guys touched on this in your last event. But for those of us who couldn't make it or who weren't there, I was wondering like what advice do you guys have when it comes to approaching those conversations about the Sabbath with your employees when where relevant?
I think one thing that I guess I already knew, but I got confirmed at our previous event was just, it sounds kind of simple, but just be confident about it. And there are a lot of other denominations, religions that you hear all the time that they're being adhered to, or so and so might be leaving the office because of their religion. But for some reason, for us, we kind of feel, are they really going to understand, or are they really going to know what it is? And I think that's firstly for us to be a lot stronger in our knowledge of our faith, which will give us the confidence to then talk about it. But then also just be aware that it's part of these company policies to adhere religion, and if not, you should look at the company culture that you're in the first place. But the whole point is they need to be aware of your beliefs, your thing. And the other side of that is, therefore, if you then are stating that, you then have to embody and live that as a person within that company as well. You can't say, I'm a Christian or I'm a Seventh-day Adventist that worship the Sabbath, but then it's almost like personal accountability. Exactly, it's personal accountability as well. But I think, to answer the question directly, just approach it with confidence, knowledge of your own beliefs, knowledge of that, and also be aware of how you can then, I guess, make it up. By that I mean, what can you do in terms of like extra hours in the other week, in the other parts of the week, or other things that you can do to ensure that you're still meeting your quota. It's not like I'm going to be off half day on Friday, but then that's it. You've got to then pick it up and bring that part to the conversation as well. They can only but respect it. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very, very insightful. It seems like one of those problems that isn't actually a problem. That's sort of like all in your head. Like many things in life, it's actually not as big as it seems. And as you so rightfully said, there are so many other spaces where people are posting that. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I was actually just going to give 2 little anecdotes on that. And I think, I don't know whether it's going to be acceptable to say this, but let me just be open. This is real. This is me. I feel like a lot of the times growing up in the Adventist church, I think we are so used to and prepared to be on the defensive because we learn a lot about, for example, like, people not understanding us, or like Sunday law coming and people will be like, have an affront to our beliefs, etc. So I think it can make us like expect the worst. But actually, I had 2 really amazing and blessed interactions which made me realize that like, if you are committed to something that is not harmful to anybody and actually of a benefit, and people can see it as a benefit and a blessing in your life, they will respect and admire it. The first was with a colleague, and he was actually the head of my department, basically one of the partners in charge of hiring trainees back for full-time positions into the department. And when I had my final appraisal in that department, which is actually the department where I ended up qualifying, as we were leaving, he said to me, "Oh, by the way, I've noticed that you observe Sabbath, because I turn on my out of office on a Friday and whatever." And he said, "I just want you to know, whatever happens during your career, and no matter how busy life gets, make sure that you hold on tight to that, because you need something like that to keep you grounded. And it's really admirable, and I respect how committed you are to it." And just from that conversation, I was just kind of like, wow, without even knowing it, or like, it's not even like I shouted about it. I just tell the people who I work with, just so that they're aware, you can really have an impact and be a light and a reflection of Christ and an example in someone's life. And the second one was definitely a more jokey and flippant example, but something that actually touched me is that I had another supervisor, and he works serious hours, very dedicated to his job. And there was one time we were speaking, and he liked to ask a lot of questions about my faith from a very like interested point of view. And there was one time where we were both in the trenches at work, going through a really hard time, and he said, "Maybe I should serve the God you serve so that I can have some rest during the week. I would do anything for that rest." And I replied on Teams, I said, "Hallelujah, freedom is available to you." And he just laughed. But I really do hope that just these little things, like that he'll remember that he used to sit with, an Adventist trainee, and now he knows what that is, and he knows what Sabbath is, and how much of a blessing it is, and how it kept me sane during that insane period of time at work. So I think like there's nothing more inspiring and beautiful than just standing wholeheartedly in who you are. And as CJ said, like, as much as it might feel like, oh gosh, a big difference and something that makes me a bit odd, there are other religions that do it. For example, something that's been a big help in my department is that one of the most senior partners is Jewish. And so obviously he understands Sabbath, and was even giving me advice on how to broach conversations and difficult deals around Sabbath. So yeah.
That's so crazy, amazing. That was crazy. I had the word amazing and crazy in my head, and it came out, and it wasn't any.
That's a crazy.
So this will be changing the language every day, but now I love that. It goes back to the verse so much in the sense of us really being ambassadors for Christ, and it's amazing in that way. And that this is real. This is me. Quote number 2 of the day. I'll be editing this.
That's from High School Musical, I'm sure.
Yes, it's ready copyright.
Because everyone smiled. They were like, "Yeah." We heard it. But yeah, the next thing that I'd ask, sort of in line with that, would be if you've ever like experienced, because you all work really high up corporate jobs, so I would put on like a applause sound here, cue the applause sound, to you guys, because you're doing really, really well in the corporate space. But have you ever experienced imposter syndrome, and how have you managed to overcome that?
Oh, yes, just
every day. Now, right now. Oh my word. Yeah, I'll briefly, because mine's quite quick. In my department, it's myself, and then the person above me is, or age-wise, is like 5 years, and after that it's like 15 years. So I'm the youngest person in my immediate team by a long shot. And obviously with that comes experience as well. So I feel it daily. I think one thing that the team really encouraged me, and also kind of like helped me with that, is, I'm bringing fresh ideas, new ideas to the table, and a different way of thinking. A lot of them are career auditors or have been auditing their whole life, and I've come from cybersecurity background, a consulting background, with like new ways of working and these sleek, agile kind of like methodology. So it kind of allows me to have a unique selling point, and that's the way they've hired you as a person. So if I now take it outside of myself, you're in a job for a reason. They've seen something about you that's either different or the same as the rest of the team that can bring strength. So although imposter syndrome should be there, because it means you care about your job and you care about improving, understand that they have hired you for a reason. You have said skills, you have the right skills, but you also have unique skills as well, which is why they want you. And I think that's what I'm hanging on to and what I'm using to boost myself. So keeping it brief there. That's but yes, I do feel it regularly.
Yeah, Ollie, I don't know if you had something you wanted to add because you looked like you had a flashback there.
No, it's a very interesting, particularly in my I guess sector, and kind of being client facing, and some of the clients that I kind of deal with, and I guess CJ kind of touched on as well about age. I mean, the demographics and age. I mean, for a long while, everyone was double my age, minimum, and all the and obviously a lot of the clients that I'm dealing with are obviously quite some seasoned, very wealthy people that I'm dealing with, and so at first it was quite I don't know, I felt like quite a bit of a challenge to kind of level with them and for them to kind of build credibility and to realize, okay, he does kind of know what he's talking about, and he's not just they're looking at me thinking, and it doesn't help that I also look young as well, so they're thinking there's something gone wrong here, like is it like they're thinking it's like, is it bring the child to work or something like that, and I guess also from a cultural thing as well, not many people look like me in my industry or in what I'm doing as well, so definitely have faced the whole imposter syndrome thing, but I think as you become more and more confident in your ability, and you kind of you initially have to kind of prove that you are efficient and you are capable, but the confidence comes and you realize, you know what, I do deserve to be here. I am probably more efficient than some of my colleagues who are a lot more experienced than for a lot more years than me, and I see Jay kind of touching as well. You're more agile and kind of able to kind of adapt more quickly and adopt change and stuff like that, and they're all kind of really key factors. And as I said, that is the reason why you are in that position. It's not just doing you a favor, it's because you actually can bring something different to the whatever organization you're in. So it's definitely something I face, and I definitely said it's something that with time you can kind of overcome that.
To add on to that, just to gas Ollie up, now obviously he's moving roles. In the previous branch that he's in, they were begging him to stay. He might be thinking it, but he now controls that whole branch over there. So I think once you kind of use and allow your confidence and skills to develop, they can only but respect you to the point where they need you kind of now. So yeah.
I would say that definitely, absolutely, to this day, most days, there's not a day that I don't feel like, oh my gosh, like there's so much to learn. Am I ever gonna bridge that learning curve? Am I ever going to be as much of an expert as, the person that's 1 year above me, the person that's 5 years above me, the partner that I sit with? Because everybody in my department is extremely intelligent, like extremely unlike anything I've seen before. And I think it's something that I have dealt with for a while, but by the grace of God, starting to overcome. I remember when I was like 18 and I found out that I got into Cambridge, I went to like an all-white school, and a guy in my class said to me that the only reason I got in was because Cambridge was trying to like boost their diversity efforts. He was like, oh, of course you got in, like they want more Black people here. And I think that I really like unknowingly carried that with me through my degree and when I was applying for my job, and that thinking like, oh, maybe I'm not as smart as everyone, but it's only because I have, this pigment that I'm just like a number for them, or like a poster opportunity, that sort of thing. Until I realized that, like, honestly and truly, like these organizations, these institutions, these jobs are operating at such a high level that they actually don't have time, resource, and money to waste on somebody that's just a convenient diversity face for them, like really and truly. And I think that what you guys have both said is absolutely correct. Like, you might not be the most knowledgeable person in your department because you're junior, but number one, no one is expecting you to be. And number two, you bring a unique set of skills and assets that maybe no one else has. Like, it might just be how personable you are. It might be that you're particularly quick at learning things. It might be that you're one of the people in the team that's able to adapt to the use of AI and integration of AI into your role in a way that, the older generations aren't able to. And that's one thing. Me and my firm's version of ChatGPT, we go together real bad. When I'm looking up documents, I will go to AI, I will go to the legal tech, I will use those tools in ways that other people might not, because in their careers they've not been exposed to those type of things. And so I feel like just a message to anyone out there, like your differences really do make you an asset if you're able to just tap in and understand how they can help you.
Wow.
That's powerful. It's powerful. Powerful. Speaking of reaching out to people and speaking back to people, have you guys seen the trend on Instagram called where they say I met my younger self for coffee?
Mm.
Yeah, so we gonna do that. We gonna do the corporate edition. So what advice would you guys have for your younger selves just as you started working? If you could go back and say like one thing to younger self, like your one sentence of advice, what would that be?
Yeah, I think that the only thing that comes to mind for me would probably be just take your time. Like you're not actually there's actually no rush to whatever your long-term goal is. You're gonna eventually get there. You don't need to rush it. You don't need to panic. You don't need to overthink it. Again, I think as humans, we always like to be in control. We like to kind of be. We think we're in charge of our own destiny, but I said God has a bigger plan, and He has the right timing for certain things to happen. And sometimes we can kind of be disheartened. Oh, I want to be here by this stage, or I want to be this. I want to move here, to move there. But sometimes it's kind of just take it easy. Just have faith, and things will come to fruition.
One thing I would say to my younger self is that it's all God. I think tying it back into that imposter syndrome piece, I think one of the surest ways to regain some faith in your ability is understanding that as much as you are hired by a panel of people and as much as you interviewed against, a host of other people, it is really God who positions you. The Bible says that like God, installs kings and removes them. And so if He has put you in a particular place for a particular time, objectively you're meant to be there. You're meant to be there because God wanted you to be there. So I think I would really take a lot of pressure off myself and like having to just be absolutely perfect, because with my imperfections, God still put me there. With my imperfections, God will move me to the next place I'm supposed to be. So
I love that. I think for mine it's just patience. Very similar to what Ollie said. Cool. I know we talked about imposter syndrome, but it's almost as if even people my age, I was kind of comparing myself to when I first graduated. I did a master's, so I kind of came out a year later, if I want to say that word, compared to some of my peers. And it's just about patience. The growth is going to happen when the growth is going to happen. Put your trust in God, but also put your just allow yourself to learn as you're on the job and grow naturally as well. And the success will come. I wouldn't even say I've reached said success yet, but just allow yourself to naturally grow, move if you want to move roles, or take on certain things. So I think I was very much rushing. I've got to leave my degree. I've got to get this job. I need to. But no, just be patient and allow things to happen. But also be very intentional about your career as well. So those two things. So yeah.
I love that. All very different, but also very interlinked in lots of different ways. And I guess something that came to mind for me just now while you were talking about destiny and being intentional about your career is the fact that one thing I've heard a lot from my peers is a lot of people are confused and when it comes to actually zoning in on a career, because a lot of options and all that kind of stuff. And you guys, again, you've picked careers that are really specific. So I guess the last question I'd ask is, what advice do you have when it comes to actually zoning in on and committing to a particular career, kind of figuring out one that works for you? Because there's something you said at the beginning where you're like, your career is not your purpose.
For me.
For you too. Some people that won't be the case, but it doesn't have to be your purpose, but it is still kind of like a means to an end, whether that end is your purpose or that end is to finance your purpose and all that. So yeah, that'd be that.
Yeah, I guess I'll start because you're absolutely right. At the start I said, and I still maintain, that I don't think that my purpose or calling is inherently tied to my vocation. I think that I have a particular skill set that lends itself well to what I do now, but what I do is just the context through which I feel like I can fulfill my purpose and my calling. I think that if you are young and unsure about all the variety of choices that you can have in your career, firstly, understand that a career, fortunately or unfortunately, is a very, very long period of time. And where you start isn't necessarily where you need to stay or where you're going to end up. So I think, in a way, just don't deep it too much. I think pray, invite God into the decision, figure out what you like, and more importantly, what you don't like. Figure out your interests, figure out what you're good at, write down 3 things you're good at and 3 things you like, and see if there is some sort of intermarriage between them, or a career that bridges all those different things. And even if you get 2 and 2 on each list, that's good enough. It's a starting place. It doesn't need to be your final place. So those are the things I would say. And also, another piece of advice is look to the future. I think look at the trends that are happening in the workplace. I mentioned briefly earlier, artificial intelligence is absolutely the future of working, whether we like it or not. So I think choose roles that could harness that, choose roles that can coincide with that, rather than maybe things and industries that won't work as harmoniously.
That was just part of what William said, which I was going to say word for word, bar for bar, in terms of literally your strengths, and then kind of like what I've described to some people that I've given advice to is almost draw like a spider diagram between your strengths. Is there any linkages, and then almost search for careers that, you know, embody those strengths. People don't realize that your job is 80-90% of the time that you spend in your life, 9 to 5 out of your day. Like, so you need to be able to, number one, be good at it and enjoy it, but it needs to be able to develop you. You can't be something that's just regressing you and just making you, you know, worse as a person or whatever. So you need to first find out what you have to enjoy explicitly, like as much as like playing football or whatever, but something that interests you and can interest you for a long time. That's crucial. And then I'll just, you know, go back to what Willie said about strengths and everything. So I won't repeat what she said, but just understand that it's something that you're going to be in for a while. So as long as something that will develop you as a person and you enjoy it and find interest, just start there. That's the starting point. And if you need more help, contact AITC. We can give you some advice. But yeah.
Oh, love that.
At the starting point, just to see what interests you, and then you know, go from there.
Yeah. I was just going to add just 2 further points to that, which I guess you kind of briefly touched on. But one being transferable skills, in the sense of, what you start with might not be where you want to end, or it might not be the goal, but I think in every opportunity in life, there's always an opportunity to learn, to grow, and there's particular things you might think, oh yeah, that's a transferable skill. I could go into this, or I could go into that. So I think that's quite important as well. And I guess it goes back to the whole thing of not deepening it too much. I know obviously it's really good to be intentional, but not everyone is going to be clear cut. Okay, this is exactly what I want to do, and I'm going to go down this route. There are different ways that you can get to the same goal, really. I know, even going back to some people are like, oh, do I go to university? Do I do apprenticeship? There's so many different, there's a wide variety of ways that you can enter into different careers. So I wouldn't rule anything out from I guess from one perspective. And I guess the other point is just, speak to people who are in these careers, and hopefully, I mean, a network like AITC, there'll be the opportunity to speak with people who are senior in those careers, have been in it a few years in different industries, and they can kind of give their insights, and that will also give you a bit more kind of, I guess, context and whether it is something that you want to pursue longer term as well. So yeah.
Oh, really intuitive and practical advice. Practical advice is always appreciated. Yeah, you can implement it. So now that's amazing, guys, and you can find them on Instagram at aitc.network.
Website coming soon. We're on LinkedIn as well. We hope to also start a TikTok, and we'll also be starting a mailing list very shortly.
Oh, he just committed us to a lot of things. Are you gonna make those accounts?
Me personally, I will ensure they come to fruition. Contact us if you have any questions about careers. We can put you in touch with people.
On our Instagram, you can check a highlight called Career Alerts. We post career opportunities on there, and not just any career opportunities, but unique ones where we know the people that are hiring. If we can help it, no one needs to be unemployed this 2025.
Yeah, guys, 2025 is not the year of unemployment. AITC.
In Jesus' name.
I put that on a t-shirt.
You know what? Follow them on Instagram so the Lord can bless you, you know. Thank you so much to the team behind Adventists in the City for coming on the show. And you can find us on socials at _Youth Perspective and on YouTube at Youth Perspective Press. Next week we'll be back delving into the world of music. But that's all for now. I've been Adele, your host, and you've been listening to Youth Perspective on Adventist Radio London. Take care and good night.